Today, I am taking up part 3 of evolution dealing with Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. We have studied that Mendel carried out experiments on the garden pea plant by some sativa. He studied the inheritance of one gene and two genes and their alleles. He did not make any attempt to study the allelic frequencies and the genotypic frequencies present in the gene pool of a population. What is the gene pool? Gene pool means all the genes and their alleles present in a population. Then what is a population? Population is the same type of individuals occupying a specific area which breed among themselves and produce viable and fertile offsprings. That constitutes a population. So in a population there is a gene pool. In a gene pool there are alleles and they have certain ratios or proportions. How to find out the allelic frequencies and genotypic frequencies in a population? The solution for this problem was given by two scientists simultaneously. That's why it is known after them as Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. In the year 1908, G.H. Hardy, an English mathematician who worked with Srinivasa Ramanujan of Indian mathematician, the same Hardy. So G.H. Hardy of English mathematician and W. Weinberg of a German physician. Both of them proposed the same model to calculate the allelic and genotypic frequencies in a population. Then, the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium states that frequency of dominant and recessive alleles in a population will remain constant from generation to generation provided the following conditions are satisfied. So they have laid down some conditions. And if these conditions are satisfied, the allelic frequencies and genotypic frequencies of any given population remain constant or remain unchanged generation after generation. Now let us see what are the conditions imposed by them. The first condition is the population size should be large. It should not be reduced to a small population. Mating occurs at random. That means no selection in mating. Mating must occur at random freely among the members of the population. No mutations should occur. There should not be any mutations. Fourth point, all genotypes are equally fertile. So all the animals should be fertile and there should not be any sterile organisms. Generations should not overlap. This means there must be clear-cut generations one after one. They should not overlap. And there should be no emigration or immigration from that population or into that population. Immigration means moving away from that population. Immigration means coming into that population. If some animals migrate into that population, it is called immigration. If some animals of that population leave that group, it is called immigration. So there should not be any emigration or immigration. If all these conditions are satisfied, then that population will not evolve. So all these conditions, they go against evolution. As there is no evolution, what happens? The allelic frequencies and the genotypic frequencies remain constant. If any population deviates from consistency of allelic and genotypic frequencies, it means that that population is evolving. And Hardy-Weinberg proposed one equation to calculate allelic frequencies and genotypic frequencies of a population. This equation is nothing but a simple binomial theorem. P plus Q whole square is equal to 1. Very simple mathematical equilibrium of probability. If you expand this equation, it will be P square plus 2PQ plus P square is equal to 1. It is a very simple equation, and in this equation P represents the dominant allele, Q represents the recessive allele, P square represents homozygous dominant genotype, Q square represents homozygous recessive genotype, PQ represents heterozygous genotype. So in this way, various types of terms are assigned P and Q. Then, what are alleles? Alleles are the genes occupying the same locus on the homologous chromosomes. In other words, they can be defined as alternative forms of a gene. A gene has one or more alleles, but an individual can carry only 2 alleles. Then, genotypes means the genotypic constitution. In Mendel's first law, 3 types of genotypes are formed in the F2 generation. That is capital T, capital T. That means both are dominant genes. Capital T, small t. Both these plants have both dominant and recessive genes. These are called heterozygous individuals. Dwarf plants have both recessive genes. These are dwarf individuals. So in this way, in Mendel's first law, we come across 3 types of genotypes. That is homozygous tall, heterozygous tall, and dwarf plants. These 3 genotypes occur in a definite ratio, that is 1:2:1. Then, in a population, we may not find 1:2:1 ratio of genotypes. It varies. Similarly, the allelic frequencies also varies. Then how to find out the allelic frequencies and the genotypic frequencies in a given population? For that, we take the same example of Mendel's first law. Here, P represents capital T, that is, this is the gene for tallness. Q represents small t, that is, gene for dwarfness. P square represents capital T, that is, homozygous tall plant. Q square represents small t, it means homozygous dwarf plants. PQ represents capital T, that means heterozygous tall plant. So in this way, we have to use various symbols in calculating allelic and genotypic frequencies. Then I have given one problem here. In a garden pea population, the gene pool consists of 90% of dominant T genes and 10% of its recessive allele, small t. If pollination occurs at random, what percentage of their progeny may be expected to be tall and dwarf? Here, the percentage of dominant and recessive alleles is given. By using these figures, we have to find out the ratio between the tall and dwarf plants. So here, P is the frequency of the dominant gene T, Q is the frequency of the recessive gene small t. So by using these values in this equation, P square plus 2PQ plus Q square, we get 0.81 plus 0.18 plus 0.01. Here, 0.81 represents homozygous tall plants, 0.18 represents heterozygous tall plants, and 0.01 represents dwarf plants. If you take the genotypic ratio, it is 81:18:1. If you take the phenotypic ratio, it is 99:1. So in this way, by using these values, we can calculate the genotypic frequencies in the gene pool of a given population. Second problem. In a garden, 16% of the pea plants are dwarf. In what proportion do dominant and recessive genes are present in the gene pool of that population? Here remember, always we must consider the value of the recessive allele. We should never consider the frequency of the dominant allele, because a dominant plant can be homozygous or heterozygous for the trait. If you take the dwarf plant, it has only 2 recessive alleles, and it is easy to find out or to calculate allelic and genotypic frequencies. Now let us see this problem. Here the value of recessive plant is given, that is 16% of the total population plants are 16%, in the total population 16% of the plants are dwarf. So here the value of p square we don't know, we have to find out. We know the value of the q square. Q square is 16. If q square is 16, if you convert into 1, it is 0.16. So square root of 0.16 is 0.4. So now we know the value of q. The value of q is 0.4. If you know the value of q, you will be automatically knowing the value of p. 1 minus q is equal to p, or 1 minus p is equal to q. So knowing the value of either p or q is very important, but it is always calculated from the value of q. Here we know the value of q is 0.4. If the value of p is 0.4, the value of q is 1 minus 0.4, that is 0.6. Now we know the value of p and the value of q. By using these values, we can calculate the ratio of p and q, that is 6:4, or 60% of the plants are tall and 40% are dwarf. In this way, we calculate the frequency of alleles in a population. I have again 3 problems here for you to calculate. The first problem, in a population of garden pea plants, the gene pool consists of 50% dominant T genes and 50% their recessive allele small t. If pollination occurs at random, what genotypic ratios are expected in that population? You calculate the answer by using the first example. Second one, in a field, 9% of the pea plants are dwarf. Find out the allelic frequencies of dominant and recessive alleles in the gene pool of this population. It is just similar to second problem. You can easily calculate. The third problem, in the population of the plant snapdragon, 1% of the flowers are white. Find out in what proportion of plants, or what proportion of plants produce red flowers and pink flowers. In snapdragon, there is incomplete dominance. That's why we get 3 types of colors: red, pink and white. So, keeping that in mind, you find answer for the third question. So, according to Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, if the allelic frequencies and genotypic frequencies remain constant, it indicates that population is a stable population or unchanging population, and that population remains same generation after generation. If the allelic frequency and the genotypic frequency varies from time to time, what does it indicate? It indicates that the population is undergoing a change or undergoing an evolutionary change. So in this way, by studying the allelic and the genotypic frequencies of a population, we can find out whether a population is undergoing an evolutionary change or remaining stationary. So in this way, Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium helps us to calculate the allelic and genotypic frequencies in the gene pool of a population. Thank you.